Ooh, honey, look at this thing.
What's up, kids? I would say welcome back, but I think that's kind of condescending because you guys didn't go anywhere. I went somewhere. I haven't made a video in like 3 weeks, so it's a condescending thing to be like, hey, welcome back, like you guys did something different. You didn't. I did. It's summer. Shit happens. And I live in the Pacific Northwest, where we did, not too long ago, we were the hottest location on the planet. We were hotter than Africa, hotter than the Amazon forests that I guess are hot. So it's like, I'll be damned if I'll record this thing with a fan on, and when it's hot like that, I'll be damned if I'll record anything without a fan. So I'm going to welcome myself back into your lives for those of you faithful viewers who I totally appreciate. And if you are new to this channel, or if you're old, this is not a continuous thing where you have to watch every episode. You can pick on your favorites. I know you don't need permission to do that, but if you're just chiming in and you never watched before and you're like, well, I don't know if I want to watch this guy because I don't know what he's about. I'm not about anything. I'm talking about the movie. It's a case-by-case thing. Each movie, it's its own thing. I think overall, if you did watch them after a while, I mean, you'll figure out, oh, this is his style, this is his take on stuff, and this is how he's going to watch things. But it's not necessarily, if you start on episode 93, you're not going to be like 30 seconds and be like, fuck, I need to watch the first 92. That's not the case. And it's hot in here. I just turned the fan off. Tonight's movie is Frankenhooker from 1990, directed by Frank Henenlotter. Frank Henenlotter almost sounds like Frankenhooker. Like if you slurred Frankenhooker, like, what's your name? Like if your name was Frank Henenlotter, there's probably a few times where he's been drunk. Like, what's your name? Frankenhooker. What? Frankenlotter. Frank Henenlotter. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to look up whatever other movies he's done. But this is a classic. Gearing up to watch this and do the review is the first time I ever watched this movie. I've been fully aware of this movie since it came out. It's just one of those. When you're a kid growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, you have plenty of time to do lots of stuff. You don't have the money to do it. And you don't always have the time. There's a lot of, like my family on Friday nights, starting around the 5th grade, we would rent. My mom would let us pick out scary movies to watch. Pick out movies in general, but a lot of times we would just go to the scary movie section. Be like, oh, that looks scary. I think there's always kind of a weird, unspoken, like challenge between me and my brother and sister. More me and my sister, because my brother is a little bit older than them. It's like he had shit to do on Fridays. But me and my sister, we're still in grade school, so it's like, oh, I dare you to watch this. Here's something I watched that's scary, and you can't. It was kind of, it's a theme. My mom likes horror movies, so it wasn't weird to end up watching scary movies together. But that doesn't mean you always have time to do it. I remember going to the video store with a friend. I remember when they had that little, like, it was this little, like, prop, and when you walk by it, it was, like, motion sensitive, or you push the button or whatever, but it was the Frankenhooker chick, Elizabeth, saying, want a date? Want a date? A lot of people ask me, like, have you ever seen this? Oh, my God, you haven't seen that? And it's like, there's a weird misconception of, like, it's like, well, okay, I have a horror movie channel. That does not make me an expert on anything, and it damn sure doesn't mean that I've seen every horror movie that's ever made, because that's impossible. So I don't like getting shit. But there's a lot of shit that came out in the 80s. People watch it now, and they're like, Jesus Christ, how could you watch those 80s movies? They look so terrible now. Hey, newsflash, jackass. They look terrible then. A lot of horror movies that we watched when we were in high school, we watched because they were fucking funny. I was like, what the hell? That guy did what? No, that looked fake as hell. You were like this weird judge in this way. It wasn't like, I watched horror movies in the 80s and I'm a big... It's like, I think there are people like that. I was not one of those. I liked a good scary story and all that, but as far as effects went, I was like, that looked fake as hell. That looked fake as hell when I was in 3rd grade, and it looks just as fake now as it does when I'm 44 years old. The only thing that's aged well, and rest in peace, because he just died recently, Biz Markie. Biz Markie's music sounded, and I know this word's kind of offensive, but his music sounded retarded when I was in middle school. I was like, what is wrong with this guy? And as I got older, it sounded better. It sounds better every time I hear it. But when I was a kid, I was like, what the fuck? What's wrong with this guy? Who let this guy make music? Moment for Biz Markie, because he was awesome. Even though, saying that, I've only heard like 4 or 5 of his songs, but I like them all. Making music with your mouth is a fucking classic. I'll put a link below to that. Making music. You know, the guy could actually rap. He fooled you. The joke was on you with Biz Markie. He's like, I'm going to market myself as an idiot, but I'm going to actually be I don't know. Like, you got what I need. I'm totally going off on a tangent here, but the shit ages great. Because when you hear You Got What I Need, or whatever that song's called, it's like, oh, this is like deliberately, it's almost like a parody of a love song, which it is, but it's like, it sounds good. Like, this guy's totally in rhythm. But when I was in 8th grade and it came out, I was like, what's wrong? Is this guy like on morphine? Did he just get a tooth pull? Is he coming from the dentist and he's on some hard shit? But I hear it now, it's like, man, I didn't realize that's a good song. Before we get too far into this movie, though, as always, the reviews are brought to you by Cool Dude Inc. And I just got some shirts today. And you can have this shirt, too. And you probably know this is a Friday the 13th shirt. But if you've watched all the Friday the 13th movies, then you know for real that this is not a Jason t-shirt. This is Roy. Spoiler alert if you haven't already seen I think it's part 5. I think it's 4. 4. Damn it. I just watched those movies recently, and it's like they bleed together. If you're like, what happened in part 5? I don't know. Jason killed people. There's a link below. Go visit it. You too can look this good, and for much cheaper than if you go to Gutter Garbs and Fright Rags. Yeah, I'm throwing them under the bus because they don't respond to me, and they charge $30 for their shirts. In the bizarre opening of this film, we meet Jeffrey Franken. And I feel like his name is like a direct homage to Reanimator, old Jeffrey Combs, even though Herbert West his character wasn't named Jeffrey, but Jeffrey Combs plays him. So I think the premise of this film's like, you named him after Jeffrey Combs. I almost feel like they wanted Jeffrey to play this part and he turned it down, and that's like an ultimate diss. Because I love Jeffrey Combs. He's done some cool shit, but he's done some terrible shit too. Like, if you're making a movie and Jeffrey Combs like, nope, I don't want to be involved. Maybe just stop writing that script right there. Jeffrey Combs said no. Deal's off. But Jeffrey in this movie, he's a doctor, electrician, handyman. And he looks like a poor man's Andrew McCarthy, who is also no stranger to hanging out with dead bodies. And he's like camped out on a dining room table playing with this brain with an eyeball on it, like poking and prodding it and trying to figure it out. But it turns out it's not his house. It's not his parents' house. It's his girlfriend or his fiancée, Elizabeth's house. Because it's her dad's birthday and they're having a party. And everybody else is outside, like, hanging out and shit. And he's inside, like, bringing a brain to life. And, like, her mom walks by. And instead of acknowledging that it's happening, she's just kind of like, oh, hey, Jeffrey. Can you pass the ketchup? Because the ketchup's, like, where he's doing all his gross shit and stuff. And it's like, why? First of all, why isn't your ketchup in the refrigerator like a normal person, or in the cupboard, or anywhere other than like the science experiment? And he just hands it to her, and then she goes out. But a little time passes, and he goes out because Elizabeth's dad is going to blow out the candles, and Elizabeth presents him with his birthday present. It's a remote control, self-propelled lawnmower built by electrician, handyman, Dr. Jeffrey. When I'm not busy putting eyeballs on brains and communicating with them and trying to bring them back to life, I make landscaping tools. I make your life easy. And Dad turns it on. It starts going. It's a serious machine. And it goes towards Elizabeth. And soon Jeffrey realizes, oh shit. Elizabeth, move. She doesn't. And the lawnmower fucking kills her. Sometime later, I'm not sure how much time has passed, but Jeffrey's like in his mom's basement. And he's hatching a plan to bring Elizabeth back to life. And he's getting kind of weird about it. Like, he's got pictures of her all over. He pulled out a picture. He has like a restaurant that he made in his basement where he takes her picture out to dinner and then afterwards makes out with her. Afterwards, after getting off with her, instead of smoking a cigarette, he puts in a VHS tape of the newscast from that covers the incident of Elizabeth's death, and he watches it. And it's his secret tapes. He Fort Knoxes that shit, but somehow his mom can always tell when he's watched it. Which is weird. It's like, why does she even know that you have it? He reminds me of like that episode of 21 Jump Street when Tom Hansen, when Hansen, Johnny Depp's character Hansen, when Amy, his girlfriend, gets killed in the Minute Mart when they're on their way somewhere, and he was planning to break up with her, but then she got killed. So now he's like, now he's like, oh my god, like it just fucks him up. But he steals the surveillance tape from the evidence room and watches it like a million times. Like he doesn't go to work, he just stays home and watches it. He watches it until he hits the brink of sanity, and it's my second favorite episode of 20 Jump Street ever. I bet you Hansen wishes he could have Frankenhookered Amy back to life. When I was making this episode, I was thinking, you know what? Maybe I'll take a break from horror and start a 21 Jump Street series and just go episode by episode, because that's my favorite show. I throw references in all the time. That'd be awesome. I even went to the Slasher app. If you're not familiar with that, go join. There's a lot of cool people there. But I threw the idea out on there. It's amazing how many people that are into horror are also into 21 Jump Street. It's also amazing how many people have no idea that 21 Jump Street's a thing. And a lot of people were really down with the idea. So I thought about it. I was like, that would be cool. And I was like, okay, here's the one thing you have to do if you're going to be specific and try and make a speaking project. If you're going to talk about something, you got to research enough, because anytime, Joe Rogan once said, if you think it up, it already exists on the internet. And by golly, he's right. Because I typed it in. And not only is he right, there's a 21 Jump Street episode by episode podcast. It's hosted by Ari Shaffir, who's good friends with Joe Rogan, and two comedian friends, Big J Okerson and Dan Soder, I think his name. Sorry if I'm butchering it. It's called Six and Jump. I've been listening to it for the last 3 weeks. I'm 20 episodes in. It's fucking awesome. And by listening to it, that means hands down I can't do it, because either I know it's not going to be as good, or you're going to rip off what they're doing. They're doing a good job. So if you like 21 Jump Street, check out Six and Jump. It's fucking awesome. Sorry, there's 40 episodes that I know of so far. Hopefully they're still doing it. I don't know if they are or not. Okay, that's enough plugs for people that don't plug me. Bitches. So since it's been like a day or two since the incident, Jeffrey's mom decides she's going to set him up on a date with a chick from the supermarket. You know, it's like, man, it's been 2 days. You're still on that Elizabeth shit? Come on. Snap out of it. You're being a little bitch right about now, Jeffrey. Because, you know, she means well. He turns it down. You know, parents, we want to look out for our kids. And he's like, hey, man, my heart just got ripped off. I don't know if I can do that. And so she's like, all right, fine. You want a sandwich? He's like, what is it with you and fucking sandwiches? But when he goes back down to the basement, it's revealed he's got Elizabeth's head somehow. I don't remember if they showed it or not, because I actually watched this movie a couple weeks ago. But I got notes from while I watched it. And he talks to her head, and he's like, I'm gonna bring you back. And this is when it gets weird and kind of like unreal and surreal, because he has a bowling bag filled with like drill bits, and he's got a drill, and he's just like, Like when shit gets too real for him, he takes the drill, the small. And I do not suggest. I'm not condoning this. Do not do this at home. He takes the bit and presses it to the back of his head. His medulla oblongata. Is that where that is? Is that what that is? That's a real thing, right? And he starts drilling, and he sticks it. I don't know, about halfway in, and he's like, oh, now I feel better. Pressure lifted. And this part where it's like, is this really happening, or is he imagining it? Are we getting up? Is this setting up a plot twist? But apparently, drilling the back of your head opens you up to a lot of creative and new ideas. Because he's like, I can bring Beth back. He already had the idea, but now he's like, I can really do this. Because all I need is a body. It's like, where can I get bodies? Stewardesses. But then it comes to him. Hookers. I can drive downtown, get a hooker, chop off her head, put Elizabeth on there, bring her back to life. I got my girl back. And him and his big glasses take a ride downtown. And we get some boobage. As he meets a hooker and shows her some cash, says, hey, how would you be interested? And I'm going to need a lot more of you. And then he makes up this lie about how his brother's in the hospital and he's going to do a beauty contest. So they take him to their pimp, because this is how hookering works in New York in 1990, 89, when the movie's probably actually made. And their pimp, coincidentally, looks like a nice guy and all, but it turns out he also runs cocaine. Jeffrey, what are you getting yourself into? Abort! Abort! Jeffrey half-ass aborts. He mainly just leaves. He sets up a deal, but he managed to snag a vial of that cocaine, and he goes back home. And since he's a handyman, a doctor, an electrician, and all this other shit that you need to be, it turns out he's also a chemist. So he takes that little vial of, it's not even cocaine, it's like crack. So it's already, here's how crack works. You have crack. If you want to turn crack into a lot of crack, cocaine is a small amount that you start with. Now, if you mix it with baking soda and other shit or whatever, you can cut it and you can turn a small amount into a bigger amount. And then you sell it and you make, 10 times the money, depending on how much you can produce. I learned that from Rick Ross being on, the real Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross being on Joe Rogan's podcast. He explained how to do it. Take a small amount, you cut it up, you make it into smaller, you mix it with some other shit, you sell it to black people. And the government will deliver it to you to take care of black neighborhoods who need their fucking crack fix. But it turns out the black neighborhoods didn't need that help. You kind of fucked them. He starts making crack, but he makes like a super crack. And at the same time, he's watching on TV another episode of Elizabeth getting killed. But there's some footage, and he sees Elizabeth talking to Zorro. Like Elizabeth on the side was maybe had a side hustle where she's a secret whore. And he like shows like this, I can't believe this. But then he's like, well, gotta make all this crack. And I was like, well, that doesn't change who maybe you thought she was. Maybe you should look more into her. That doesn't make you more mad at Zorro, or maybe you got a vendetta against him. It was this weird thing that got thrown in there, and it had no effect on the rest of the film. It's like, oh my god, my fiance was involved with this fucking crack dealing pimp. I gotta bring her back. She is who she says she is. I'm gonna just overlook this secret life she has. And that's why at this point, like, he takes another hit off the drill, sticks it in the back of the head. And I'm like, well, he must have hallucinated that. He must have hallucinated that he saw a tape, and like, maybe this is foreshadowing, because he's like, oh, well, fuck. I went there and I met some hookers, and Elizabeth is a girl, and I'm going to combine their bodies, so maybe she's a hooker too. I don't know. It would be kind of weird to like find, like, my girlfriend's dead. I want to bring her back. She was a perfect angel. Life isn't fair. But then I found out on the side she was a crack cocaine whore who wasn't being honest with me. But I'm not going to lose any steam in bringing her back to life. And when I do, if this succeeds, I'm not going to question her about any of it. It's called trust. But once he finishes the super crack, somehow, I don't know how he knows he's done, because he's not like sampling it, which is smart. Don't sample. It's good that he didn't. But then he's like, I'm going to make this. I'm going to go back to Zorro's. I'm going to get some hookers. And this shit is strong. This is some potent shit. This is probably going to kill him. But that's not me killing, because he kind of needs to kill them in order to kidnap them. So he can take their body parts. He doesn't want them to be too dead. But he's like, and I present them a drug. They can say no. Just say no. But if you say yes, you basically sign the permission slip for me to drag your drug body home and start taking the parts I need. Because part of the beauty pageant thing that he's doing, this guy's a real piece of shit. Because he can't just be like, I'm going to grab the first hooker I see who looks attractive. I'm going to take her home. I'm going to chop off her head and then put my fiance's head on top of that and call it good. No, he gets all selective and shit. And he's like, well, let me look at all the girls. He's like, oh, I like the legs on her. That's part of it. What about her? Ooh, she got some nice arms. Her, those titties, I like more of a C cup. Oh, that's perfect. Let me see those butt. Oh yeah, It's like he's playing to disassemble like 8 different girls. In the end, though, he's got 8 girls to choose from. And he's somehow, when he's all done, he's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm going to bring them all back to life. I'm just going to selectively have the girl that I want at the end of the day. But somehow, when all is said and done, I'm going to make 9 girls out of 8. I think somebody's going to be... that doesn't work out. It's like, this is like the most chauvinistic shit ever. Just gonna... But, good old hookers, they look in his bag, they see bags of super crack, they're like, all right. They all pull out their own... They all got their own crack pipes. They're like, all right, crack. Like they ordered it. Like, oh, crack's here. Woo! They start smoking, and he's like, whoa, wait. And I don't understand, because it's his bag of money, but I don't know. It's like, how do you forget that you had a bunch of crack underneath it? Your super crack that you've spent, you've been obsessed with making. It's like, oh, I forgot that was in there. Really? You can't be stupid, because you can make fiance killing lawnmowers and bring brains with eyeballs back to life and make super crack, yet you're a fucking idiot when it comes to human behavior. Which at the same time you were relying on your knowledge of human behavior to get you the results you wanted, you fuck. And it kind of sucks because it paints hookers in this weird light where all they're into is like getting fucked so they can make money, so they can smoke crack, and that's why they all have their own pipe. I'm sure that's not how hookers really are. The bad news is, though, the side effects for the experimental super crack include a slight fever and possibly exploding bodies, which is good for Jeffrey because now instead of having to chop these girls up and kill them at the scene, they're just exploding and he can just take the parts that he needs. Even though part of him wants to bring them all back to life after he kills them, but what are you gonna do? There's no way you could make a perfect plan in this situation. The bad news is Zorro is here, but fortunately he gets knocked out by a flying hooker head. Jeffrey fills his glad bags full of hooker parts and escapes down the fire escape. Gets in his car and goes back home, and in record time brings Beth back to life using lightning and good timing. Yeah. Fuck med school. I'm just going to go watch Friday the 13th Part 6. And it works, kind of, but what he didn't anticipate is now she's a whore. And she knocks him out and heads back to Zorro's because, all the hookers' body parts put together, all their souls are linked in their body parts or whatever. So, now she's an amalgamation of all these hookers. She's in there too, but she's dominated by the other hookers who are like, hey, we need to get back to shop and go see Zorro and give him money and fuck people and shit. It's kind of like that movie Body Parts where he gets that arm and it was a serial killer arm, except this is a whole body. That would be funny. We brought you back to life. Cool. Here's your new body. All right. Why do I feel like fucking people for money all of a sudden? Oh, it'll pass. It's a side effect. Give it a couple days. Like, no, I need to go fuck for money right now.
Want a date? Going out? Looking for some action? Need some company? Got any money?
Till finally she finds like the most pathetic John in town. He's like, all right, let's go. And she takes him up. And instead of the murderous part, I don't understand. I guess it's just because anytime he brings somebody back to life, they're assholes. And they want to kill people. Because it's like, well, okay, I get it. It's like you're 90% hooker. So yeah, you want to go fuck for money. But why do you want to kill this guy? Unless deep down, all hookers want to kill their Johns. And get the money for free. You lazy fucks. But she kills him. Hits back on the street looking for more Johns. I don't even think she got any money from him. She meets another guy. He's all into it until he gets a close look. Which is funny because it's like, it's not that dark. You can tell something's wrong with her. And he's like, oh, what the hell? And she rips his head off. Throws it into a dumpster. Just like Jason Takes Manhattan. Friday the 13th, Part 8. Where he punches the boxer in the head. And his head flies off from his body and lands in a dumpster. Both of which take place in New York. Both movies were made around the same time. But it's funny because whenever like a killer kills somebody in a New York environment, it's usually in front of everybody and everybody's like, eh. And they just go about their business. It's like, wow, how fucked up is New York? She continues to walk the New York streets muttering her hooker talk. And then eventually comes across Zorro. And Zorro recognizes her. He recognizes the hooker parts, like tattoos. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, I know that tattoo, but I don't know the rest of her. And wait, I know that birthmark, and I know that pierced whatever. He didn't solve the mystery, because the mystery doesn't make any sense. Like, oh my god, turns out somebody's, like, that's never happened before. Also, Jeffrey finds her and gets her back home. And he's like trying to like, hi, Elizabeth, you're not supposed to be, just because I made you out of hooker parts doesn't mean you're supposed to be a hooker. It's like, just because I used gingerbread ingredients to make gingerbread cookies doesn't mean it should taste like gingerbread. What the hell is going on here? But Zorro has followed them. So Zorro comes in. He's like, I don't know what kind of crazy bullshit this is, but I'm not taking any chances. He goes in. He chops Jeffrey's head off. It's kind of shocking because Jeffrey's like kind of this lame. Now, you kind of feel sorry for him. He's your typical kind of 80s, like, I feel sorry. He's like the guy who's pining the whole movie to get the girl. And then he ends up winning her over and getting her. That's kind of his role, even though he had the girl from the get-go. I understand that. But it's the pining part about him. And then all of a sudden, it's like, just like that. No words spoken. He like turns. Zorro comes in. He's like, bitch. Chops his head off. Confronts Elizabeth. He's like, all right, what's going on here? Who's that guy? And why do you look like 8 of my hookers? But all the hooker parts are in a fridge that gets knocked over. And it spills over and the hooker parts come out. So instead of Elizabeth actually having to do anything to Zorro, the hooker parts all come out. Arms and legs and all this. And it turns out they weren't happy working for Zorro. Zorro wasn't a really good boss. Maybe he didn't share enough of the cocaine. They don't seem to like him, and they kill him. And then I think the screen goes black, and we get our Tales from the Crypt twist-like ending as Jeffrey opens his eyes, and he's alive again. He's like, what? I'm alive. And Elizabeth's like, I saved you. He's like, how did you save me? What happened? She's like, well, you got killed, but don't worry, I took care of it. And I think her heart was probably in the right place, but at the same time, she gave him a little taste of his own medicine as he looks down and sees he's made of hooker parts. Because it turns out, like, his serum is estrogen based, so there's no way she could have made him out of man parts. So she just took the existing hooker parts that he already had and brought him back to life. And he's like, what the fuck? And it totally feels like, and it's the right, I think this predates Tales from the Crypt by like a year, if that. Because I remember watching Tales from the Crypt around this time. But it totally feels like this is an episode of Tales from the Crypt that they could have done this in 30 minutes. But they made it 90 minutes, and I think that's what kind of ruins it. It's too long. Longer than it needs to be, but it has a nice twist in it as he realizes, like, oh shit. And the moral of the story is, to just leave shit alone. The Gilligan Award goes to Jeffrey. Because Jeffrey's love died, and it died at its peak, which means it would always look beautiful to him in hindsight. So instead of moving on and judging that love objectively, he chases that love, that feeling, refusing to let go, trying to refill that tank that no longer exists, and in the process takes it out on all future women, killing the idea of ever moving on. The only thing worse than the actual loss is knowing that it was he that caused it, while at the same time continually making things worse. What did we learn?
Survival tales.
Don't stand in front of a moving lawnmower. Don't just do drugs you find in some random bag. Don't bring the dead back to life. Has it ever ended well? No. Alright, kids, that's it. Hopefully see you soon. I've already got the next movie lined up, but I'm not going to say what it is. But I will see you guys next time, and it will be sooner. Those of you who actually make it this long. I love you guys. I love all you guys, but especially the ones that can hear me talking right now. I love you the most.